welcome to the Week 6 PFF pregame show. I'm George. This is Tim the Toolman, Eric Eager, Sam Monson, because Mike Renner kissed a girl and she had COVID. Mm-hmm. So, you know, what can you do? We've got Ian Hartitz hanging out with us from Columbus, Ohio. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got some great games. We're going to talk about all of them, every single game, even the 2 Monday night games. Eric's got some stinky teasers. It's going to be a lot of fun. Sam maybe brought a stinky teaser too. And I'm just hoping that Ian tells me Joe Burrow, finally time to start him. So let's get after it. And let's start with a game that almost didn't happen again. Denver playing the New England Patriots. This line opened at like 10.
Yep.
Is now down to 8.
7.5.
7.5. Even more money coming in on the Denver Broncos. New England Patriots are 9th power ranked team. Denver Broncos number 23. Okay. I want to open up with this. It was 10. It's now 7.5. That's a big move. Cam and Stephon Gilmore are playing. What's the reasoning? Why would you be betting on the Denver Broncos here?
I think that the uncertainty surrounding New England is probably, a cause for this, right? So Sony Michel not playing in this game, that doesn't matter. But the issue associated with, like, we just simply don't know who New England's going to make inactive, who they're going to play, and they already are a team that had a ton of opt-outs, right?
Okay.
They have only one receiver, and he played, the last time we saw New England play in Kansas City on that Monday night, he was garbage, right? Mm-hmm. And so who's Cam going to throw to? Denver, a relatively decent defense. Denver's covered the spread the last time, both games that Drew Lock has played. I think that all that's factoring in here. I don't get the move. I don't understand why it opened at 10.
Okay. So you think this is just a correction?
I think this is just a correction.
And so you still think Denver is the smart play here? Maybe not 7.5 at 8?
Not 7.5. In fact, I think the betting move here is to probably take New England on a teaser down to 1.5. The total here is 44.5, which is pretty small for a 2020 game.
We're already in it. It's welcome to the teaser show.
Yeah,
that's
nice.
What this is.
Play this down, because before at 10, it wasn't. It was teaser protected. You could, New England had to win by more than a field goal, but now you're teasing it through 7 and 3. Pretty good move here.
This game scares me, though, because of Denver's quarterback situation. Drew Lock is a young quarterback, and I think everyone views him as the salvation, right? Brett Rippon came in, threw the ball all over the place, 4 big-time throws, 4 turnover-worthy plays.
Had to cover the whole field.
One was a touchdown.
Right, in the same game. That's madness, right? And you think Drew Lock comes in and solves all of that, but he actually has a worse career big-time throw to turnover-worthy play ratio, 6 to 10 in his career. So you think he's going to come in, he's going to be better than Rippon, the Broncos are going to be rolling because of it. I don't know that any of that is actually true. He's got a lower average depth of target in his career than Rippon has. He's got a lower, his yards per attempt is about the same. His turnover-worthy plays, big-time throw, worse ratio, but he does have the tools. He's got the big arm. He's got the capability of having that high-end game. I just wouldn't want to put any money on it.
Tyler, give me the camera right here. Look into my eyes. The New England Patriots with Cam Newton are a better offense, much better offense than they were with Tom Brady. Much better. You know why? Because, as Eric said, they can't throw at anybody. No one's open.
Right.
And so with Cam Newton running the ball, I have a lot of faith that Belichick will take advantage of Drew Lock, who's not very good, basically a rookie, given the number of starts that he's had. And at 7.5, this all the way down to 7.5, I'm definitely including it in a teaser. I would take the Patriots if I had to, even though I'm supposedly passing. All right, Cam Newton's back. Ian Hartitz was the guy that was literally at the front of the bandwagon before the season. He told everyone about Cam Newton, and for that reason, when I had my drafts at the end of the drafting season, everyone took Cam Newton, paid way too much for him, and so now I have no Cam Newton. But, Ian, Cam Newton's back in QB1 land for you, I presume.
And the only reason he wasn't was because people actually thought there was a QB competition going on in New England. The team that just continuously sets their game plan to take advantage of their opponent's weaknesses and then plays their own strengths. Really, we think that Jarrett freaking Stidham and Hoyer were going to compete with one of the best quarterbacks we've seen over the last 10 years. I don't think so. But it has been surprising to see just how much they have really leaned in to the Cam rushing usage. After week 3, Cam was on pace for 187 rush attempts. I mean, his previous career high was only 139. So even missing this game, he's still on pace to shatter that. Looks as healthy as ever. He was tied for 5th in goal line carries before missing that game. So, you know what? The passing game hasn't been great, but on DraftKings, we can actually take advantage of that because they are so cheap. I love a Demir Bird at 3,500 as a stacking partner with Cam. But, yeah, he's an every week QB1 with this sort of rushing usage. It's a fantasy football cheat code to get this sort of, dual threat ability from any player, receiving running backs, rushing quarterbacks. So keep buying into it. In this matchup, I mean, without Von Miller and stuff, I think we already know that the Broncos aren't really a defense to fear anymore. Then you also throw in that Jarrell Casey is now out for the foreseeable future with a bicep injury. I think it's a soft middle of the defense with Denver, and we're going to see Cam running into it with plenty of success.
Cam, well rested, 4 red zone rushing TDs, first in the NFL. I really like what you're talking about in terms of the opportunity for him to rush the ball is probably their biggest advantage over Denver. And their best running back is Cam Newton. So I'm all over that. You are passing, though, Ian, on the game, either against the spread or over. 44.5 is the total. I thought this would be an over for you. You're the over king.
Nah, I just don't know what's going on with this Broncos offense, really. And then on the other side of things, the Patriots just have had so many guys in and out with this. I mean, look, I don't think Drew Lock's going to go in and escape with a win or anything like that. But I wouldn't be shocked if this game's a little bit closer than everyone thinks.
All right. I'm passing it at 8.5, 7.5, like I said. I'm taking it. And you're doing the same, I assume, as far as the teasers go?
Yeah, that's for sure. I think the low total here, I think, makes a teaser a fairly good play.
Are you enticed by the lower number, 7.5?
A little bit, but I'm kind of in the same boat as Ian. There's just too many weird variables in this game that terrify me.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm going to start off by being petrified.
Okay, Prop King is back. I'm here for you. Cam Newton, over 230 passing yards, plus 145. It happens. He's going to do it. And Newton, no interceptions. I like that as well. I think it's minus, plus like 145. No interceptions for Cam. Not going to need to throw any. There's no one on Denver that's going to pick him off. So those are your 2 props to start it off. We're going to move to Texans, Titans. The Titans are 5th power-ranked team. The Texans are number 22. The difference between them, just in terms of power ranking, if you look at how many points better than an average team the Tennessee Titans are and how much worse the Texans are, is about 6 points of difference there. Mm-hmm. However, this line, 3.5, total 53.5, and both of us are on the Texans. Yep. So speak for the 2 of us. Why that difference in the power rating, but we like the Texans?
Yeah, when you look at the the sort of spot here, the Titans are not only coming off of a Monday night game, they're coming off of a Tuesday night game. So when you look at the rest differential, it's enormous. When you look at like the 3 home games in consecutive, that middle one is generally a bad spot for some teams. So for me, I think it's just the spot stuff, and then as well as, I think Houston is sort of emerging. The quarterback play with Deshaun Watson is just a lot better than it has been with Ryan Tannehill so far, as good as Tannehill was on Tuesday night.
So you've done a pretty good job of scaring me of the way I want to go. But I think everyone's writing this idea of, look, Bill O'Brien's gone. The Texans are way better than their record. We expect them to bounce back. But their bounce came against a Jacksonville team whose secondary was stuffed full of 7th-round picks, undrafted corners, like bad players, right? And so suddenly Deshaun Watson to Brandon Cooks looks like a great connection. But this is a fundamentally bad football team whose schedule doesn't get that much better throughout the rest of the season. Tennessee is good. I suspect this bounce lasts 1 game and then goes back in the tank.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. The spot to me is the biggest one, right? The simple fact that they played on Tuesday. And that game, they came out guns blazing. It was like their Super Bowl. Everyone doubted them. Right. Oh, they're going to ruin the league. Oh, we'll show you. Okay, now you got to turn around. You're playing at home again. You've kind of celebrated a little bit. God only knows what that means in Nashville.
Well, and what was the defense played really well against Buffalo, right? But really was it? I mean, the first interception by Josh Allen was dropped. The second one, I mean, I could have intercepted if I was playing in that cover 2 zone that Malcolm Butler was in with Allen. Like, defense is like the product of the offense's execution in front of you. And so when I look at this Titans
bunch
team,
of drop passes in that game.
When I look at the Titans, I think of a team with a pretty good offense and a bad defense, right? And they're not as bad as the Jacksonville defense that Houston played last week, but they're not good. And Houston, I think you're starting to see Randall Cobb get involved. You're starting to see Brandon Cooks, obviously with Will Fuller in the mix as well. David Johnson has been bad, right? They're moving a little bit away from him. That offense could be more, efficient here. This is a high total over 50. So when you're looking at, do you want Houston against the spread? 3.5 is a good number, but money line might also be in play here.
Yeah. Let's kick it to Ian. A.J. Brown was back. Like third or fourth play of the game, we saw him, nice little double move, catches a touchdown. This is a guy that everyone loved preseason. Now that he's back and healthy, back in the wide receiver one conversation?
Always, man. AJB wide receiver one season. Good to finally be back in action with it. Corey Davis remains out. I know week one it was looking a little bit split, but I mean, the biggest issue with projecting AJ Brown moving forward this year was that we knew he was going to regress to some extent. I mean, the guy broke our PFF database pretty much for yards after the catch per reception, but could he get enough volume to overcome that? Because it was such a run-first offense last year. I mean, the guy couldn't even finish with over triple-digit targets. And we have seen them, allow Tannehill to throw the ball much more often in the first, month or so of this season. So I think that he's not only back and looking healthy, but he's back to almost a more fantasy-friendly offense for his talents. We know he can make the big plays, but he hasn't even really had to do that to this point. So, knee injury, maybe he's still not at 100%, but even a 90% A.J. Brown with the sort of target share that he's been getting is more than fine to rank as a confident, wide receiver one. Now, not the most ideal match. I'm not afraid of Texans secondary, but I think we should give Bradley Roby a little bit of credit for, for holding up his end of the deal on, most of these shadow matchups of the season. Did a good job against Tyreek Hill and Marquise Brown. Adam Thielen got loose for over 100 yards and a touchdown. I mean, I'm not saying to fade A.J. Brown just because of Roby, but not the easiest matchup in the world. But I think there's enough volume this time around for him to win anyway.
All right, you are back to your point-scoring ways, taking the over 53.5. Looking at this, there are a couple things that I like here. Ryan Tannehill had a great game on Tuesday. 95 PFF grade was the highest of the week. But these two quarterbacks are very similar, 10th and 8th overall in PFF grade. Deshaun Watson, 7% of his throws are big-time throws, less than 2% are turnover-worthy plays. So I'm rolling with the Texans. My props for you here. I have Derrick Henry. He gets loose. He's going to get loose for over 9.5 receiving yards, just one little screen. That's all it takes. And then I like a little Duke action, over 15.5 rushing yards. Why? Because David Johnson, he ain't that great. And then I like Ryan Tannehill, no interceptions as well. Eric.
Yeah, this is a game where I think Houston gets right, and you start to look, and I know Sam said their schedule doesn't get that much easier, but it's substantially easier than what they had before, where their average opponent was like 3 or 4 points better. So I think Houston gets right here. I think it's a letdown spot for Tennessee, and things get a little closer in that AFC South today, with Indy being largely favored and then Houston getting a W here.
Yeah, I think almost the exact opposite. This game is just going to show that the Houston Texans are not that good this season. And, those first 4 games, it was a nightmare of a schedule, but it wasn't a fluke. It was representative of the fact that they're not in that class. All
righty, this is maybe the game of the early slate. Browns, our 12th power ranked team. Steelers, our 10th ranked power ranked team. The difference in terms of points above an average team on a neutral field, just 0.6 points. However, the Steelers are favored by 3.5. Do you know where it is right now? Is it 3.5?
It's a juiced 3.
Okay, there you go. So maybe 3.25 for you Wizards at home. Total at 51. However, I'm going to kick this off here. We have Baker Mayfield grading substantially worse than he did last year. The results are better. Okay, the results are better. I have a lot of love for Kevin Stefanski. However, in this game, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the best pass rush in the NFL. They blitz about 50% of the time. They're getting pressure almost 10% more often than the second team in the NFL, the second best pressure rate in the NFL. So Baker Mayfield, a little banged up, not actually playing as well as people perceive him to. I really like the Steelers in this spot.
Yeah, and this number's now down to a flat 3. So people are certainly betting on Cleveland. We saw it 4.5 last week when we did our podcast. Down to 4, down to 3.5, a little bit of resistance back to 4, and then now all the way to 3. I think that there's some statistical things about Cleveland that could regress at some point. We talked about this last night on our podcast. Baker Mayfield, 30 passer rating when pressured, right? Like those things tend to sort of ebb and flow. He could have a game where he's under pressure, but somehow Beckham and Landry are
the ribs will heal, and all of a sudden, okay.
And then through play action, he's only averaging 7.1 yards per attempt, 57% completion. Again,
because he's not very good.
Almost every quarterback, good or bad. I mean, Josh McCown one year had
McCown is a baller.
I'm
Don't
not saying.
you dare.
For a few games.
But you look at this and you say, okay, if those things revert to league medians, right, and then they still sort of maintain, the brilliance that is Stefanski, which is motion, play action, getting teams in base defense, and then you have the tight ends like Hooper and Njoku against linebackers. Wow. Like that could be a fairly unforeseen thing for people who are backing Pittsburgh.
All right, what do we have on this game then?
I think Cleveland at this point +3 might not be the bet. I think maybe +143 on the money line would be something I'd take.
No, I'm asking you, are you willing to put your money where your mouth is?
Yeah, give me Cleveland.
Okay, +3?
I'll take 3.
Let's do it. I don't know I don't want another steak dinner.
And you're
not going to leave me hanging over here.
All right.
I'm like 3-0 against you. It's going to be 4-0.
It's brutal. Yeah.
All right, you're dressed like a Cleveland Brown. What are you saying here?
Yeah, that was unforeseen. Just from a matchup standpoint, I think this is a horrible game for the Browns. I keep going back to that Week 1 game against Baltimore, which is the closest analog to the Steelers we have in terms of a team that is going to throw the kitchen sink at you with blitzes, with pressure, with everything that they don't love. And that offense was completely non-viable Week 1. Now, the Steelers don't do it in exactly the same way, but they've been more effective at it in terms of total pressures, in terms of the highest blitz rate. And Baker Mayfield now has the dinged up ribs, right? However he's going to be playing, forget the fact that he hasn't been playing that well to begin with. Now he's dealing with busted up ribs. His right guard, who's the best graded player in all of football, Wyatt Teller, isn't playing. I don't know if this offense is going to function. They are going to force him into all the negative things that he was doing last season, that he was doing Week 1, and it's going to go bad.
Does defense have that much control over the game, though? That's my issue. When you have a great play caller like Kevin Stefanski, defense is more about the execution of the opposing offense.
Right, and Baker Mayfield doesn't execute.
And in Week 1, they didn't execute, but they've executed really well the last 4 weeks on offense. I mean, Mayfield's had bad plays, sure, but they've executed as far as game plan is concerned, and being efficient in the run game, efficient in the pass game.
If they run a ton of reverses, I'm here for it. All right. We didn't even talk about Myles Garrett, who has been an absolute beast. He is playing in this game.
3 offensive linemen out for Pittsburgh, by the way.
Defense doesn't matter, though.
I mean.
Just twisting you in circles here. Let's go to, we haven't talked about Jesus Christ, the second coming, Chase Claypool. And that's why I'm going to go to Ian. Everyone is just losing their minds about Chase Claypool. He got to go up against Nathan Jerry last week, which if I could go up against Nathan Jerry, that would be probably a good thing for my career as well.
Yeah.
What do you see out of Chase Claypool today and maybe going forward?
I mean, the big question was, he really got the usage spike last week because Deontay Johnson had to exit with the back injury, but Deontay's again sidelined. So, I mean, I don't think it was a situation where they were going to sit Claypool anyway. The guy has been their best wide receiver all year. You don't sit your best players, particularly when, they drafted this guy. We know the Steelers have been the best team at drafting wide receivers pretty much over the past 2 decades. And since 2000, they've only drafted Santonio Holmes and Plexico Burress higher than Chase Claypool. This isn't some 4th or 5th round scrub we just see having a good game or two. Really, since Week 1, he's been making plays. Had the wild catch over Bradbury against the Giants, long 80-yard touchdown against the Broncos, even almost scored against the Texans. So, he's not going to score 4 touchdowns every week, but the guy's number 2 in the entire league in yards per route run. Every time he's got an opportunity, he makes a big play with it. And, looking at this offense, James Washington's doing okay, but Juju doesn't exactly look right. We see him listed on the injury report before inevitably gutting it out. Claypool, in this offense now where Roethlisberger has a career low average target depth, Claypool kind of is their source of big plays and explosiveness for the time being. So I think it's really hard to get him off the field. And in fantasy land, we got to treat him as a borderline wide receiver too here moving forward. And, again, we saw the ceiling game, but just because someone has a huge game doesn't mean we need to fade them because they're not going to replicate that. It just shows us that is in their range of outcomes. So good stuff from Claypool. And again, we don't even need to worry about the usage with Deontay out this week. So start him with confidence.
Yeah, that's a good point. Who are some maybe popular receivers that people were high on, or obviously higher on in the draft process, that you would actually play? You would play Claypool over this week?
Oh, man. Claypool, I think he's right up there. Again, I got him at 25th, and just kind of looking at the overall rankings, I have him ahead of Justin Jefferson, ahead of Darius Slayton, who's been getting fed. So, I would still start guys like, DJ Moore, CeeDee Lamb, even Devontae Parker ahead of him. But, look, you should not feel nervous about starting this dude. He's not a one-week wonder. The guy's been playing great all season.
All right. It is 3 against 1. That's not bode well for my attempt at getting another steak dinner out of you. But I'll note, it says 3.5 up there. It's now 3.
Yeah.
Everyone is siding with you and taking the the Cleveland Browns. We'll see how that works out for you. All right, Ravens, Eagles. This is another game that has moved quite a bit. Opened, 7.5 or so, and is now 10. The Eagles are 24th ranked team. The Ravens, number 2. The difference between them, according to our power rating, just simply in points above or below an average team, has them about 10 points different. So it seems to line up more with what the line is at currently. That being said, do you have the gumption to take the smelly Eagles against that Ravens defense?
No, I think there's a lot of uncertainty here. I think Philadelphia is not very good in general. They're terrible defensively, especially in the middle of the field. Their linebackers and safeties. I mean, Chase Claypool absolutely abused them last week. And
Mark Andrews.
And Lamar's going to be in the pocket, right? Because Lamar, has a little bit of a knee injury. To me, the best bet in this game, if you look, on our props tool, is Lamar Jackson, under rushing yards. I mean, if you can get that thing at like 50, anything above 50, I feel like it is a very good bet because they're going to keep him in the pocket, I think, at least until their bye week. His rushing attempts have gone down monotonically every single week. And they're just using him less in that formidable position there. We already see it. It's at -160. If you can get it at more like a flat -110, it's a lot of value there.
I know they lost last week, but I thought that the Eagles were actually a winner a week ago because Carson Wentz kind of looks back. I know he made some mistakes. It wasn't a perfect game, but it's Carson Wentz. You're never going to get the perfect game from him. That happened in 2017. It's not coming back. But Carson Wentz looked like he can throw a ball again, which is something that was missing for the first 3+ weeks of the season. Came back a little bit against the 49ers. If he's legitimately capable of playing at that kind of high level again, even without offensive linemen and wide receivers, the Eagles are more dangerous than I think people are giving them credit for.
Yeah, I mean, that was the interesting thing about that Pittsburgh game. And one of the reasons I'm a little nervous about Pittsburgh, right? They have the easiest schedule so far in the NFL, but also they probably should have let the Eagles cover in that game. And they had Chase Claypool get, loose from the slot, and then the game got out of control. But they did put up some points. Carson Wentz was a top 5 graded passer last week. Mm-hmm. He played well. So if you can say, look, they're going to pass protect a little bit better than the Bengals will, which I don't think is saying a ton. I do think there's an opportunity for them to keep this a little bit closer. It just worries me. I mean, that the middle of the Eagles defense is rough here. All right, let's go to Ian. I'm going to ask him because he backed up the Brinks truck for Lamar last week, had him at QB1. Ian, are you doing it again? What's the deal with Lamar Jackson?
No, yeah, I'm scared off by this rushing usage as well. And with the Ravens having, Week 7 bye on the horizon, it would make sense for them to continue, not put their foot on the gas here. Maybe it was a 1-week blimp. I mean, the only other time we've seen Lamar not used at all as a runner was Week 1 of 2019 when they had, a 40-point lead on the Dolphins by halftime. So that Bengals game would also qualify as a situation where didn't exactly need to put their foot on the gas. But man, that's kind of what we're looking at again. I mean, Ravens seeing them favored by, touchdown at this point in a game that they probably won't have too much trouble with. So, yeah, I dropped him down to 4. You're still starting him in most leagues unless, you just have an embarrassment of riches at the QB position, but definitely got off the QB1 train. In DFS, he's always a great cash game option. I would stay away from him in that this week, but, having people like us, worried about this rushing usage does make him a good tournament play, and we always know that his pass game volume, when he is throwing it, it's going to Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews. So Jackson, Brown, Andrews stacks, I think, for all the money in the tournaments if the rushing stuff ends up being more of a 1-game blimp.
All right, I have a prop for you. Carson Wentz, 22.5 completions over. Why? Because they got to throw the ball. They're going to be down. They're 10-point underdogs. You're welcome. Go check out the props tool on PFF.com. It's pretty sweet. Even if you have different prices at your book, you can adjust them and see where we would have an edge if we would. So go check that out. We are going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. We've got some game stacks for you to use in your tournament DFS lineups this week. It is time for some stacks on stacks. We've got 3 stacks for you. If you want to read about these stacks, by the way, you can go to PFF.com. Ben Brown, one of our best analysts, gives you all the reasoning behind these. But the main idea is this. You want stacks that people don't have, right? If you have that stack and it goes off, you're in good shape. So we'll start with stack number 1, which goes to best game of the day. Tampa Bay, Green Bay, Brady, Godwin, Evans, paired with Devontae Adams on the other side.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of the sentiment that the Green Bay defense is pretty good, that the Tampa Bay defense is pretty good, and that's what's fueling some of the I think some of the sentiment around this game. But the total is in the high 50s, right? So there's going to be scoring here. Godwin, I think, is the best wide receiver in this game. Devontae Adams probably right there with him. So those two guys have to be in there in order for you to win. The tricky one here is whether or not Mike Evans is going to play. He's a game-time decision per Bruce Arians. And I think that the twist here, the thing that gets you sort of to the window, is you're going to the Tampa Bay side instead of the Green Bay side, where Aaron Rodgers has been the MVP of the NFL so far. But I do think that Tampa Bay's offense, if they get behind, is going to put up enough points for you to really like this game.
I do like this game. Next stack, Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, and your boy. I can't believe you didn't wear a jersey of Alexander Hamilton Madison today. Mattis season in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's Mattis season. So when you look at this game, like what could happen? Minnesota could get out to a lead here. They're favored in the game. Total is in the 53 now. It was 54. But Madison gets the rushing yardage that's associated with Minnesota getting the lead, and then Ridley and Ryan get the yardage associated with being behind. Again, Madison a little bit pricey on DraftKings at 7,200, but I think still enough for you to get to accumulate some players that are a little bit more chalky after you put these 3 in your lineup.
Gary Kubiak doesn't see a big difference between Alexander Madison and
One of
Dalvin
us.
Cook.
One of us.
Yeah, and neither do I, quite frankly. A little worried about Kirk Cousins in the red zone, though. Going to pad those stats a little bit. All right, stack number 3. Our game. Steelers, Browns. Ben Roethlisberger, Chase Claypool, Eric Ebron, and Juice Landry.
Yeah, this gets you, I think, some really low price options. So maybe you can go to a more chalky, running back, wide receiver situation. Claypool and Ebron both under $5,000. Same with Jarvis Landry. I think Landry has a pretty good game. In this game on play action, things over the middle. He might even throw a pass or two, given Baker's, decreased state. So, yeah, this is a good one as well, and it gives you, I think, the freedom to stack up on some other players, down your roster.
Those are the 3 stacks. There are more. You just have to go to PFF.com, and you will find them there. Next up, a battle for NFC East supremacy in New York. I tried to get that one off without smiling. I couldn't. Gardner's a home dog, and is Joe Burrow going to bounce back? Next. Stay with us. I promised you NFC East matchup of the week, and that's what you shall receive. The Washington football team are going to New York to play the Giants. Now, we've talked about this game a lot because the New York Giants are the 31st ranked team. The Washington football team are 29th. There's not a lot of difference between these two teams, and yet the Giants opened as 3-point favorites. People are listening. They're hearing that Washington is the side to be on, and this is getting bet down a little bit. It's now 2.5. Was 2.5 earlier. Now it's what, 1?
Yeah, we saw it at 3.5 Sunday night. We liked Washington at 3.5. Total in this game, 42.5. So you're really getting, there's probably some stacking probability on a game like ending in 3. But people are picking up on Washington here, all the way down to -1. I don't necessarily understand that move. I can see it coming off of 3.5, but I don't understand what it's doing getting all the way to 1 here. I would probably like the Giants. The one matchup here that I think is important in this game is James Bradbury, who's done a terrific job against opposing number ones. When you look at Washington's team, Gibson's a threat, but their only threat on offense is Terry McLaurin. And if the Giants can sufficiently shut him down, then you're looking at an offense last week that didn't complete a pass that traveled more than 6 yards in the air. And so if they can't score, I know Daniel Jones might give them an opportunity or two, but I just think the Giants outclass Washington a little bit if the number's 1.
Thou shalt not flip-flop between defense mattering and not mattering. Terry McLaurin will not be stopped. It is a matter of whether Kyle Allen will be able to get him the ball, and I think that he will, and here's why. Aaron Donald does not play on the New York Giants.
This is true. And I think you're right to dial in on Kyle Allen, and I think Kyle Allen versus Daniel Jones is the matchup because Allen is not good. There was a reason that there's a reason he got dumped from the Carolina job in the first place. Kyle Allen will go out there, he'll fling the ball around. A lot of them will head in the direction of defenders, and that's usually not an ideal thing. Daniel Jones, on the other hand, has been in this disaster of a situation for the Giants this season, but his PFF grade is 19th. Jones has actually been playing okay when he's been given any kind of platform whatsoever. The offensive line isn't good, but Chase Young coming back from injury doesn't look like the same guy. I think Daniel Jones could get something done.
Plus, you have the added toughness that comes from a Joe Judge coach team.
Of course. Running laps is going to pay dividends.
Running laps outside in the snow.
It's snowing already?
Yeah. Look.
It was 95 in California just a few hours ago for me. All right, a couple of my favorite players in fantasy football play on the Washington football team. Maybe that's why I'm so biased here. I also like
there.
Also, Chase Young is awesome. But Terry McLaurin and I might call him Antonio Gibson from Memphis. So, Ian, when I look at Terry McLaurin, are you as worried as Eric is that he's going to get shut down by James Bradbury, of all people?
We'll see. Bradbury, he's been doing a great job on the outside, but hasn't been someone that's, consistently moving to the slot for every snap. So I think like most shadow matchups, it's going to be more of a 60, 70% of his routes versus a, full 100% thing. I don't know. McLaurin over these last 2 years, they've had Darius Slade, Patrick Peterson, even Stephon Gilmore match him. And hasn't gone off in all these matchups, but he's certainly won his fair share of the reps. So I think the bigger issue is, what's he going to get from the guy under center. But Kyle Allen was more than good enough to at least enable DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey to fantasy relevance last year. So we just need him to do that again for McLaurin and for your guy, Tony Gibson. I just don't know if this is going to be the week for Gibson. Last week I was all in thinking that, okay, they're making the change under center. It makes sense. If they also make the change in the backfield the same week, wasn't the case. Continuing to see J.D. McKissick be all kinds of involved. It is a two-back backfield, which is fine in fantasy football. Look, it's a committee almost everywhere other than, 3 or 4 one-man shows. So if it's 2 backs instead of 3 or 4, we can live with that. But unfortunately, we're not going to get that CMC-esque workload for Gibson anytime soon, as long as McKissick is one of only 5 running backs with at least 25 targets this year. So absolute madness with how much he's involved. But I still think it's a matter of when, not if, Gibson truly takes over the backfield. Who knows if it's this week? Probably not. Either way, at least we got someone, primed for 15 combined carries and targets. You can do much worse than that. And the matchup against the Giants is far from intimidating. So cautiously more optimistic than I was last week, going against Aaron Donald and company.
Antonio Gibson or Kenyon Drake?
Oh, man. I think they're neck and neck at this point. I would probably have to go
Asking for a friend.
Drake only because I would go with Drake only because this matchup against the Cowboys, this might have the single most plays of the season with these two teams.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you. All right. It looks like Eric is the Eric and Sam, Lone Rangers on the New York Football Giants. Congratulations. And you're getting a nice number now because it's down to 1.
In Daniel Jones, we have faith.
Yeah, I don't like it at -1, to be clear. I listened to the podcast earlier in the week. Get a better number. Go use the props tool. All right, the Atlanta Falcons, the 28th ranked Atlanta Falcons in our PFF ELO power ranking. It's come that far. They're 28th in the NFL. Are facing the Minnesota Vikings, number 20. The Vikings are, is it now 3.5? It was 4 early this morning.
People have not learned their lesson.
No. Watch the show. We're telling you every single week, betting on the Falcons is a recipe for disaster and pain. The total is at 54. I'll start this one off. To me, the Vikings offense is legit and probably not getting the credit that it deserves, and especially from the passing game. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, 2 of the highest graded wide receivers, if not the top 2 in the NFL. And Thielen just doesn't get that kind of respect. So Cousins looked like a nightmare earlier in the season. I think now he's starting to come around a little bit, played well in Seattle in prime time. So I like the over in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the market, I think it disagrees with us a little bit. It's moved down a point since midweek, but I like the over here. I don't think you're going to see a ton of defense, and Matt Ryan indoors is a quarterback I like to back in terms of getting points. The Vikings defense is not particularly good at all. They did a really good job in the first half of going against what the Seattle likes to do, which is the deep drops. They blitzed the heck out of Russell Wilson, and that worked for half a game. The Vikings defense has had one good half of football this entire season. So when I look at this game, I think the Falcons are going to score. It's whether or not, in a small thing here, I mean, Raheem Morris is splitting defensive play calling duties just like they did last year in the second half of the year when they went 6-2. Now, that's probably not going to mean anything because nothing matters with the Falcons. But, if you're looking for a reason why people, I think, are backing Atlanta, that's probably it.
Yeah, as someone new to the show, I haven't been burned with the Falcons as much, so I'm taking them based a lot off what you just said.
I am sorry.
But also because...
Do you have a fully stocked fridge?
Look, why would you bet? Well, but I agree. Look, if you've bet the Falcons every game this year and you stop for the one game they might win,
right. True.
then
That's called addiction.
Yeah.
I'm with you on the idea that, look, defense doesn't matter. On the other hand, when you have a one-on-one matchup that is so bad, it can actually tilt the entire game in your direction if you haven't figured out a way to shore it up. The Falcons have one of those. Grady Jarrett against Drew Samia's backup. Not even Drew Samia, who would have been that problem. Drew Samia's backup, who presumably is going to be Ezra Cleveland starting today. That has the potential to wreck this entire game on offense for Minnesota unless they figure out how to stop that.
Fragility has been the reason the Falcons have sucked since 2017. The Vikings are equally fragile. Their secondary is garbage. Their offensive line, especially on the interior, is terrible.
Right.
Their tackles have played fine. Their interior offensive line is horrible. And the other thing that Minnesota, they have 2 good receivers, but in a three wide receiver formation, they're just not putting an NFL wide receiver out on the field. So I think these two teams, it's sort of like the Spider-Man meme with these two teams. And maybe the Vikings are a slightly better version of them than the Falcons, but I can understand why people like Atlanta in this one.
Yeah, if I were the Vikings, I'd be running a ton of play action to try and slow that pass rush down.
But Foyce Aluakin went to Yale, so he's not going to fall for that shit.
All right. I have in my notes here to talk about Todd Gurley and Alexander Mattison, so I guess I will. That's how you get me to talk about running backs in this year 2020. So Ian, Todd Gurley did not look fast, but he was productive last week. Alexander Mattison could not find a hole on 4th down, but was also productive last week. What are you expecting out of these 2 running backs?
That's the thing with Gurley, man. I agree with you. I've watched every touch he's had this year, and he doesn't look great. But then you look at the kind of underlying metrics. He's averaging career high 0.2 missed forced tackles per attempt, 3.5 yards after contact per carry. Obviously, we're not seeing 2017, 2018 Gurley, but at least it's a step up from what we saw in 2019. And God forbid that, Jeff Fisher season. So he's been out there. He's been productive. He's still not getting, this massive pass down role in games that have been falling behind. Brian Hill and Ito Smith have almost been siphoning off 50% of the snaps for himself. But with Gurley, we're getting 15 carries, pretty much anywhere from kind of 3 to 5 targets per week, and that's firmly there in RB2 territory. So, someone going in this year that I think we all were kind of wondering, is he washed? How long is he even going to hold on to this job? At a minimum, I think he can continue putting Gurley into your lineup in matchups like this that you don't need to be particularly. fearful from. And then with Madison, I mean, if anyone out there has a start-sit question with Madison, take that down, because this dude needs to be in every single lineup. One of the better, I think, off-season podcasts I went on was with the Vikings beat reporter. And my big question was, if Cook goes down, is Madison going to be that three-down guy, or Boone, or maybe even Amir Abdullah going to be involved? And one of the big takeaways that this dude had for me was that the coaches couldn't have been more impressed with Madison's pass blocking ability in camp. So I think they really do view him as a true one-for-one replacement with Dalvin Cook. If the Vikings get up a lot, he'll get the rush times. If they get down a lot, I think he'll get plenty of targets, because he's going to be on the field the whole time. We don't have many of these game script independent backs out there, so when we get that situation, start them every single week.
Ian is on the over, because how could you not be in this situation? I have a prop for you beautiful people out there. Kirk Cousins, 2.5 passing touchdowns. I believe that Zimmer has learned his lesson. He will not run Alexander Mattison in the red zone. What does that mean? Play action. Little Kirk Cousins, little Adam Thielen action. So fire that one up. It's plus 145. It's a nice little plus price there for you. All right. The Detroit Lions are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we said we're going to talk about every game, so therefore we have to talk about this game. The Detroit Lions, number 27. The Jacksonville Jaguars are number 30. Now, it has been a while since Gardner Minshew has done anything worthwhile for me, but he is now a home dog once again. Gardner Minshew is a home dog against Matt Patricia? Yes, please. Thank you. I will take the Minch.
Yeah, Desmond Trufant out today. Kind of a decent loss for the Detroit Lions, who are already terrible at rushing the passer. That offensive line for the Jacksonville Jaguars not going to be exposed much today. I believe Chark is out, though. I mean, that's a significant one, if I'm not mistaken. Or is he in?
Look, Austin is both at home quarantining and not able to tell me about
This looks like active DJ Chark.
Okay, cool. So, I mean,
there you go.
When you look at this, then I think there's really only one side of this game, which is the Jacksonville Jaguars plus the points at home. Defense is bad, but the Lions are a team that just fails to execute in games like this. So, early on in the week, I thought that this number was spot on. Now, after things have folded in, I think Jacksonville's probably the side.
Yeah, critically, I think Detroit gives the quarterback the answers pre-snap, right? You know what you're going to face. They've more than 50% of their snaps are playing cover one. They're playing some variety of man coverage more than anybody else in the NFL. Gardner Minshew at least is able to look up, know what he's dealing with, and figure out where DJ Chark is to give him the ball, right? That's basically all you need. Minshew struggles when he has to process what he's doing, because he's already a tick slow in terms of working through everything he does. But if you're going to give him the answer pre-snap, he's going to deal.
Well, and the linebackers for the Detroit Lions are, despite what people have said, are not very good. James Robinson, is an Alexander Mattison, type of player where he's not, people don't view him that highly, but he's actually been very productive. I think Jacksonville, if they get out of their own way, I think can move the football in this game substantially.
Stafford, as much as we loved him preseason, has not played.
It's a different offense with Galladay in there, though.
Yes,
they've been better the last two games, and I do worry if I'm a Jacksonville about being able to cover. That's why I think this game is 100% about how good Minshew plays, which it speaks again back to the Detroit side where they simply refuse to play modern defense.
This is very true. You spoke about Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, the other receiver there. Ian, what's the deal with Marvin Jones? Are both he and Galladay still weapons that you're putting in there? Where do you have these two guys ranked?
Yeah, I mean, Galladay, when he's healthy and everything, as he is right now, he deserves to be, a top 10 receiver every single week, and I have my number 10. But I think Jones is the guy flying a little bit under the radar, particularly in DFS land, because if you look at their production, particularly in 2019, this wasn't really a situation where both guys were consistently going off in the same week. I mean, 20 combined touchdowns between the two, but only twice did they score in the same game. And you look in Galladay, he had 4 duds, and, games that featured fewer than 50 receiving yards and no scores. Marvin Jones was playing in 3 of those games, and he went 6 catches, 101 yards in a score, 4 catches, 43 yards and 2 scores, and then the famous 10 catch, 93 yards and 4 score game. So, truly, I know everyone, is kind of attacking this game. We've seen Stafford's average target depth really increase since Galladay got back in the lineup, which is great, news for his fantasy potential. But I think, getting a little contrarian in tournaments with a Stafford, Marvin Jones, TJ Hawkinson stack, in the event that Galladay just doesn't have a big game for whatever reason, could be a nice way to get an edge in some of these larger tournaments. So, yeah, I mean, you're starting Galladay in any league, I get that, but don't sleep on the chance of Marvin Jones popping off as well.
I have a prop for you again here today. Matt Stafford, no interceptions, minus 105. Go to pff.com for more of these wonderful props. I'm rolling with the Jags +3. Eric is passing. And Sam and Ian, I don't know what I can do for you all. Patricia coaches.
This was back when Chark was supposedly not playing.
Oh.
So I'm bound by.
It was Chark week for a second there. And then,
I'm bound by an unfortunate circumstance of timing, unfortunately.
Alrighty. Bengals, Colts.
Yes.
My fading of the Indianapolis Colts, it continues to ride. I told you that their defense was overrated last week. Guess what? Still overrated this week. And it seems as people have started to clue in on the fact that Phillip Rivers maybe should not be starting anymore, and Jacoby Brissett could maybe be the quarterback in Indianapolis. This line, though, has moved a ton. 9.5. When we looked at it on Sunday night, it's all the way down to 7.5. Joe Burrow looked awful. I mean, absolutely terrible. Joe Burrow bounces back this week. Cincinnati, 7.5 is a crappy number, but still riding with it.
We have Burrow over rushing yards today.
Oh,
I mean, anything in the teens.
You killed it, man.
Anything in the teens, I think is a good play.
As I said last night, on my way to the airport to my red eye, it has not changed. There are 3 things in life that I love: food, football, and over quarterback rushing props.
Don't leave out your girlfriend, by the way.
She's not watching this.
I mean, when I look at this game, I like the over, and it's for a reason that you just talked about, which is Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers keeps both teams close to the end zone. Sometimes he can, he made some throws early in the game against the Cleveland Browns that got them in position to score. He also put the Cleveland Browns in position to score a number of times with interceptions. And while I don't think the Bengals defense is all that good, they can certainly step in front of a pass or two, as they did against Lamar Jackson last week, Logan Wilson getting his first career interception. So I like the over in this one because I think Indianapolis will be able to move it at will, but I also think Cincinnati will be able to move it better than people think.
Yeah, late shot put to the flat is always a cornerback-friendly pass from Phillip Rivers.
Like, how can he not see it coming? I can see it coming watching the game.
Anyone can. I'm with George. I think this is a massive bounce-back game for Joe Burrow. Look, the Ravens' defense is like the worst defense in the NFL if you're a young quarterback trying to find your feet and figure out what you're looking at on a play-to-play basis. And that was the first game where he was a big part of the problem. Like the rest of the season, he's been a poor victim of the rest of this offense, but he sunk them even deeper with his play against the Ravens. But the Colts are like the polar opposite in terms of what they do schematically. Second lowest blitz percentage in the NFL. He will at least know what he's looking at every single snap, and when that's been the case so far this year, he's been pretty good.
If you disagree with some of this stuff, though, if you disagree with the over, you disagree with Cincinnati, this is a great teaser leg if you like Indianapolis, right? Like now that you're down from the 9.5, tease this thing, you get through the 7, you get through the 3. If you like the Colts, I would probably include them in a teaser leg as opposed to betting them ATS.
Maybe with the Pats.
Those two games. You get both favorites at -1.5, both totals near about 45. It seems like it makes some sense.
It does until you see Phillip Rivers attempt to throw the football, and then all of a sudden it hurts your
Is this a situation where the way the Colts play offense plays into the Bengals defensively, where they're just garbage in the front 7? And
I was going to say, what defense? There is none. You mentioned the blitzing. It looked like the Bengals had never seen a blitz before.
Yeah.
Good news is there shouldn't be too many.
Which also is conducive to overs because you're going to get 1 or 2 plays where he just, like last week, throws it up and you get good field position for the Colts. And maybe even Rivers can take advantage of that.
All right, Ian, you were ahead of the game last week because you warned me about Joe Burrow against the Ravens. Now, I didn't listen. That's on me. I copped to that. But talk to me about the Bengals, who have some offensive weapons here. Now they're playing a Colts defense that is overrated. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And, even if they are not quite as overrated as we're saying, I think in this matchup specifically, they're not going to be able to give Burrow the same sort of problems we saw last week. I mean, Colts right now are 25th in pressure rate. And I think as Sam was saying, look, when Burrow has been kept clean, he's been fine. And that was even the case against the Ravens. He was 9th in PFF passing grade and yards per attempt in a clean pocket, dead last when he got pressured last week. So we knew that wasn't going to work. Week 10 and week 15 when they play the Steelers, okay, probably try to find another streaming option as well. But otherwise, we're going back to Joe Burrow QB1 territory. Chahrouri. He's my number 11 quarterback on the week. He was the QB 10 in fantasy land in weeks 1 through 4. So again, most of us, or I tried to tell you, man, that we knew not to start him last week, but moving forward, I think we're going to be good. I agree that this is generally an overrated Colts defense, particularly if Darius Leonard remains out, which he is. So, truly one of the more difference-making, I think, linebackers in the league. I know Eric, is out here saying that defenses really don't matter unless offenses are causing them to, which I can get behind to some extent. But either way, Burrow, he's got the drop-back volume, the rushing floor, I think, to definitely make the most out of this matchup. And I'm fine going with, Boyd and Higgins as well.
Defense doesn't matter unless it's James Bradbury, in which case Terry McLaurin is going to be shut down in perpetuity.
Matchups matter.
Thank you for allowing me to start Joe Burrow with confidence this week. I will do so. Although I have this one team where I have Minshew and Burrow, and the potential for both of them to just go off today has me getting a little excited.
Nervous.
I'm very excited about that. All right, my props. Eric told you one of them. Okay, but the other one that I really like is Joe Burrow, no interceptions, plus 100. And then, of course, probably my favorite prop of the entire day. Joe Burrow over, where are you? You're here, America? Over 11 and a half rushing yards. Your kids will go to college. They'll eat well. Make it happen.
You have to do this.
I don't know. Eric's talking. I have no idea what he's saying. Ian is going to bless us with some start sit on the other end of this break. Stay tuned. As fate would have it, I have a team with two quarterbacks, and on that team, I have Joe Burrow and I have Kirk Cousins. So Ian is here to help me figure out what I should do with these quarterbacks. Ian, your start sit, give us the quarterbacks and the running backs first.
I'm starting Burrow, mentioned in the previous segment talking about the Bengals that this Colts defense could be overrated. I think we all agree with that. And particularly they don't have the sort of pressure to really give Burrow, his highest end of problems. So, again, we're treating Burrow as the fantasy QB1 that he's been in every matchup that hasn't been against the Ravens this year. And then with Kirk Cousins, look, he played a great first half against the Seahawks last week. His deep ball's been looking good, every game except that Colts game. But it's just volume, and I'm not really convinced that the Falcons are going to be able to slow down this run game. And we've seen numerous times over these past two seasons that when Kubiak, doesn't need to pass, he really doesn't. So, Kirk Cousins might look good out there against that secondary. Don't think they can slow him down. But if he's only looking good for 15 to 25 pass attempts, that's not what we're looking for in fantasy land. At the running back position, I love Myles Gaskin this week. He's been getting RB1 usage this year with everything except the goal line. And I think generally we overrate goal line carries. Usually the guy that's on the field gets those when the offense gets inside the 5-yard line, unless there's some, game stoppage. But now, dark visor Jordan Howard out of the picture. He was a healthy scratch last week. We'll make sure that holds true this week. But with him out of the picture, we got Gaskin as the lead early down, pass down, and goal line back. Very rare to find. I am going to be sitting Devin Singletary. Guy was playing awesome, really with Zach Moss out of the picture. But last week we saw Yeldon get in there and really split things. And now Zach Moss is back. So I think Yeldon will be a healthy scratch. But either way, this is now back to a 60-40, 50-50 type committee, which, it's not awful. But, I do think there deserves to be 20-plus running backs ranked ahead of Singletary this week.
I commend you for finding a way to get us to talk about this Jets-Dolphins game, because I was struggling to find one, but I guess Jameson Crowder is a decent reason to do so.
Guys, Devontae Adams is the only receiver averaging more fantasy points per game than Crowder this year. I don't get it. you don't get it. Maybe Adam Gase is the only person that gets it. But gone are the days where Crowder keeps balling out and we just line him up as a wide receiver 3 and say he's an okay play. We need to treat him as the legit wide receiver 1 that he's been for the better part of this season and honestly last season for stretches as well. So Crowder is my wide receiver 12 on the week. I'm still sitting T.Y. Hilton. At some point, you would think the Colts wide receiver 1 is to go out there and have a big performance, but hasn't had a 100-yard game since Andrew Luck was under center. Phillip Rivers looking more erratic by the week, and I think we're honestly looking at the Jonathan Taylor breakout as opposed to T.Y. Hilton bounce back. And then real quick on the tight end position, don't be afraid to go to Darren Fells with Jordan Akins out of the picture. Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson, if either of these guys could just get one tight end for a whole season, I think they'd almost inevitably be flirting with double-digit touchdowns. So anytime we do get a condensed nature at that position, I want to attack it. And I'm sitting Austin Hooper. Targets have been going up a little bit, but we had boss man Chris Collinsworth talking about the Browns game himself and Baker Mayfield playing through his broken rib that they say is not broken, but probably will end up being broken once the thing calcifies. So obviously, just tough matchup. And I think Hooper, while the targets have been going okay over the last few weeks, he's still going to be a number 4 pass game option in this offense. More times than not, he's still not a top 15 player at the position for me.
That's why you pay him top 10 in money, right? We will be talking about maybe the Jets. To be determined whether we're going to give them more than like 30 seconds, but I have a feeling that Eric wants to bet on them. So we will find out. And then we've got the game of the weekend, Packers and Bucks, right around the corner. The Carolina Panthers are 3-0 in their last 3 without Christian McCaffrey. Their offense has gone from being one of the less efficient offenses in the NFL to being the 7th most efficient offense in the NFL. Go figure, who could have guessed that less predictability would be better for the offense, but it turns out that it is. They are playing at home. They're now facing the Chicago Bears, and they were a favorite for the first time in a very long time. That has no longer happened, right? The money has come back on Chicago. Chicago, a 1-point favorite, 44.5. Chicago, our 16th ranked team. The Carolina Panthers, our 17th ranked team.
Crazy.
We talked about some teasers here. I have a feeling this might be one that you were teasing.
Yeah, during our Wednesday podcast, we had a leg with Chicago plus 7.5 as a lock of the week. Interestingly, this number has gone back down to 1, where it's less value on the teaser because you don't get the full 7. But now you're seeing it back to 2. It's +2, -116 for Chicago right now. That can get you up to 8. So it's back to a position where a teaser is a good play. Total in this game 45. So again, sort of a perfect idea here for a teaser, given that number at 2 is sort of dead.
I want no part ever of betting a game in which Nick Foles is the quarterback. That guy has the broadest range of outcomes of any quarterback in the NFL, and I'm not touching it ever. But I will say that this game is worth watching for one of the more interesting one-on-one matchups of the week, and it's in the trenches. Taylor Moton, right tackle for the Panthers, has quietly become one of the better right tackles in the NFL. Now gets to test that against Khalil Mack, who is, a monster.
He's decent.
Yeah, I believe I've heard that.
If he could have played quarterback as well as he could rush the passer, that trade might have worked out for Ryan Pace and the Chicago Bears. What's interesting to me in this situation is I look at Robinson and Miller, and I look at the Panthers, and I go, who's covering these guys? So if Nick Foles is going to be throwing YOLO balls all over the field, I like those two, and their chances to catch some passes down the football field because Nick Foles is going to put them up. All right, I alluded to Mike Davis earlier. He's been balling out. Richard Sherman, it's his boy. He's been talking about him. He loves him. Ian, do you love Mike Davis?
Yeah, I love the way the Panthers are using him. I think it was Eric at first that went out and said that this Panthers offense would be better without McCaffrey because not the entire focal point of the offense is no longer going to be centered around feeding your running back passes. And we can go to our cool behind-the-scenes PFF stats and see that exact notion is true. I mean, last year 54% of McCaffrey's targets came on the quarterback's first read. This year it's only 34% from Mike Davis. So truly, they're focusing on getting Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, their talented receivers involved first. And if the play design calls for Davis eventually, that's fine. But they're not, just consistently forcing these checkdowns like they were in past years. And Mike Davis, he's making dudes miss. He's doing his thing. I think we'd all still take McCaffrey, with everything else equal to be our running back. But clearly this guy is a little bit more talented in the journeyman status that's been going around with him. And, as everyone else at the company other than myself likes to say, running backs don't really matter. And when he's getting this sort of RB1 touches, who cares about the rest of it? Continue to start this guy as a legit top 5, top 6 fantasy back as long as McCaffrey is sidelined.
Yeah, it's interesting. If they bring McCaffrey back but still have this diverse offense, imagine how good they could be because McCaffrey is a better player than Mike Davis. Yeah. It's just a matter of when your offense is focused around him, you're doing things that are less advantageous than throwing the ball to Robbie freaking Anderson and DJ Moore, who happen to be very good. Joe Brady, also pretty good as well. All right, Prop King, very excited about this because Teddy Bridgewater, sneaky athleticism is coming into play here. 10.5 rushing yards over. Easy. Cinch. Give it to me. I love it. I don't know
Good coverage on the back end
Here
for Chicago. We'll give them opportunities, I think.
Exactly. Good coverage. The Chicago Bears are one of the only teams in the NFL that's actually covering decently well. So, this week I'm sure that'll go to hell. But a lot of passes on this game. I decided to go with the Bears there. I don't really know what I was thinking. I'm teasing them if I'm doing anything.
Yeah, so. I think the wrong team's favored in this game, but but you're not getting a ton of value with +1.
True.
Just take the money line.
Speaking of not getting a ton of value, anyone watching the other 4 o'clock game, the JV game, which is Jets-Dolphins. The Dolphins are somehow 9.5 point favorites in this game. We already talked about Jameson Crowder. Ian blessed us with some knowledge there. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go around the horn. I just want to know, are you taking anybody in this game?
No, there's value on the Jets. That's it. That's all I'm saying.
I don't even want to watch this game, let alone bet on it.
Yeah.
So you're passing?
Passing.
Okay. Ian?
I got the Dolphins. I think with Byron Jones back, they're actually an above average to good defense, maybe. We'll see in future matchups. I know that Jimmy G game didn't show a ton, but no, I think Fitzpatrick playing well in this Jets team. I don't want to ever say a team is quitting on their coach, but we are getting awfully close to that point. So.
It's funny. I look back on the Dolphins last year, and everyone thought they were tanking. Right. And the Jets feel like 10 times the stink worse than that Dolphins team. But because I want people to think that I am a sharp bettor, I am betting on the New York Giants +9.5 because the Dolphins should not be favored by 9.5 against anybody. That was your breakdown for Jets, Dolphins. No one is watching that game. The game everyone is watching, the Green Bay Packers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm assuming this line is moving around a little bit. When I wrote my notes down, it was Bucks +1, total 55.5. Eric will correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to give you guys my take on this game to start off with. Tom Brady is playing really well. Aaron Rodgers is playing really well. The public believes Aaron Rodgers is playing at MVP status. They're a little low on Tom Brady, in my opinion. The Bucks also have a really decent coverage unit, very kind of not weak in glaring spots defense that I think helps them stay in this game, and they got a lot of rest. So I think the over is the spot that I would go here, but as you can tell, I think the Bucks are a little undervalued in this spot.
Yeah, the look-ahead line for this game was Bucks -2.5, and no games were played last weekend, and this number moved all the way out to Green Bay being a favorite. I don't know. I just kind of want to watch this game, for the purposes of
we all want to watch the game, Eric.
Spread and total. But the one thing I do like about this game, I like Aaron Rodgers under 304 and a half passing yards. I think this game plays into more of a Jones, Jamal Williams game. and less of a down the field to Devontae Adams game. In Tampa Bay, to your point, I think they want to control the ball with Ronald Jones, and they want to play defense. And even if the Packers are effective.
Bruce Arians coaches this team. They want to throw the ball downfield.
I think they want to control it a little bit. Like we saw it last game, but they do get the receivers back. I just think Rodgers doesn't put up the 300-yard game that everybody's projecting him to.
Yeah, getting the receivers back is huge because I kind of agree with George. I think the general perception on Tom Brady is too low given what he's been doing and what he's been working with in terms of a lack of healthy receivers. It's been like 2019 New England again this season for him in Tampa Bay. The one thing nobody thought was actually an issue. But that Green Bay offensive line is an immovable force now. With Rodgers getting the ball out of his hands quicker, like he's going to have a perfect platform to pass from. And he isn't just playing at an MVP level. He's playing out of his mind.
It's ridiculous.
I just think that it's too big a disparity even with Brady playing.
Let me give you some things, though, to maybe quell your excitement. He has faced the easiest schedule of opposing coverage units. Timo, our buddy from Germany, Timo Riske, told us that earlier this week. Does that worry you at all in the slightest?
I mean, it makes it more challenging, right? It at least gives him something to be concerned about. But I think fundamentally the way he's playing, it's still too much, and they're not going to get any help with the pass rush.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Bucs, Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis, both very good on the outside. So they do present something there. But Rodgers, 141 pass rating from a clean pocket. That's absurd. 10% of his throws are being charted as a big-time throw, our highest graded throws. League average is like 3.5%. And he does not have a turnover-worthy play yet. The dude is literally on fire. He's the gif of the dude walking in on fire. That is Aaron Rodgers, actually. But Tom Brady, 88.4 PFF grade, over 7% big-time throw rate, and under 2% turnover-worthy play rate. So I think he's being a little undervalued here. Okay, Ian. Devontae Adams comes out, balls out first couple of weeks. I'm very excited because I have Devontae Adams shares. Then he gets hurt. I go, oh man, this is exactly what I feared when I drafted Devontae Adams. Thought he was going to be wide receiver 1 because we know that he, last year it happened as well, didn't play as much. So Devontae Adams is back. Tampa Bay, as we talked about, has some good corners. What do you think Devontae Adams eases his way back in, or does he come out and just light guys up like he did at the start of the season?
I think he's coming right back in, lighting guys up. Had that bye week to especially get right. And, it's just looking at this matchup, like, yeah, it is tough on the outside, but Carlton Davis might not be out there. He's questionable right now with an abdomen injury and, seeing him shut down Michael Thomas in week 1 and then holding out. I mean, Al Robinson had 10 catches for 90 yards, but it took him 16 targets to get there. So at a minimum, he's going to make life tougher. So if he's truly out, then we could see a huge game from Devontae Adams here. But, with that in mind, it is a tougher matchup. I do kind of agree with the idea we could see the Packers, trying to run the ball a little bit more. I just would like seeing, let's see Tom Brady get a big game with those weapons back, because I'm with you guys. He has looked a little better, I think, than the public has given him credit for. The concern was that we were going to see some like 2015 Peyton year where Brady's arm strength was just shot. That's not the case at all. His deep balls look fantastic since week 1, and only Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers have a higher difference between big-time throws and turnover-worthy plays than Brady this year. So, you take away a guy's best receivers for long stretches, like he's not going to be as good. I agree with the assessment. It's looked like 2019 Patriots for some time out there. So wasn't expecting that, but I'm fine going back to the ball with Brady as a top 10 fantasy option. And yes, with Devontae, needs to be in every lineup.
Mike Evans, I guess questionable. I expect him, being the warrior that he is, to trot himself out there. Chris Godwin is the guy that I am concerned about because I have some Godwin shares, and I'm wondering, I have some teams with some CeeDee Lambs and some receivers that are pretty good and put up some big numbers. So Godwin coming back here, do you think he gets eased back in, or do they just really need him and he comes out and gets a full workload?
I think it's the latter, man. I think, with Arians too, when they put these guys out there, I mean, even Evans, when he's been, playing hobbled, he hasn't been like a decoy. So I think with the Tampa Bay team, we can barely ever trust anything Bruce Arians has to say, but he actually has been telling us in the last few weeks about Leonard Fournette being limited. I think if it was a similar situation with Godwin being like an emergency-only type piece, we would know about it by now.
Okay. That makes – my heart was beating kind of fast there. I feel a little more calm now. I have some props before we get to the props. Ian, kick us off. What's your play on this game?
right here. I am betting the over. Like I said, I think this Buccaneers offense, now that they're getting closer to full strength, can move the ball on just about anybody. And Aaron Rodgers, how can you bet against this guy? I know it's a tougher matchup, but he's not just having like a bounce back year. His career numbers are the best they've ever been across the board, which is absolutely ridiculous considering they didn't add anyone this offseason. But it's 2020. That's the world we live in.
He's the highest graded player in the NFL, 96.3. The dude is a machine. I'm taking the over for the same reason. Both these offenses are really good. I'm not going to let you speak. You just want to watch the game.
I just want to watch the game.
So you don't get to talk about it. Sam.
Highest rated player in the NFL playing the most important position. Give me that.
Aaron Jones?
No.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Speaking of Aaron Rodgers, the prop king is back. If you think Teddy Bridgewater's sneaky athletic, Aaron Rodgers, sneaky athletic. And his total rushing yards, 10.5. My man scampers easily over 10.5 yards. Why? Because he can. And everyone's talking about that quick release. He's going to show people the legs and the wheels here in this game at least one time. That's -120. You're welcome. All right, that was easily the best game of the day. We're going to talk about a couple of really good games on Monday night coming up shortly. But first, DFS upside plays. Ian Hartitz, helicopter plays. One of my favorite segments, one of my favorite articles on PFF.com every single week. That is next. You're trying to win a tournament in DFS, you need someone that no one else really likes that goes off and has a huge day. And for that, there's only one man that I trust, and that's Ian Hartitz. These are his helicopter plays, and that means this player is projected to be less than 5% owned and not top 5 priced at their position. Ian, my body is ready. Give it to me.
Quarterback this week, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I know some other sites have had him a little bit above 5%, but, with this weather potentially being a little bit rainy but not windy, which is important, I think we'll still see his ownership be fairly flat, as is usually the case at the quarterback position. So, always we know Fitzpatrick, the good version of him, always has his sky-high upside. He's had 2 great games this year and just hasn't had to put his foot on the gas. And, talking as we work throughout the matchup, could be a sneaky, more competitive game than we're expecting. Always has a nice rushing floor. I love the Fitzpatrick, Gaskins, Parker with the Miami defense stacks in DFS land. Running back, I like Miles Sanders. As we saw last week, opportunity is more important than matchup in fantasy football land. The concern with Miles Sanders going this year was whether or not he could, break out of a committee, because Doug Peterson has always done that in the past. Couldn't be more, just what's been happening this year. Boston Scott out of the picture. Miles Sanders every week, 80% back, getting 20-plus touches. I know the Ravens are tough, but, you remove Brandon Williams from the equation. And again, 20-plus touches, almost guaranteed. Fine going back to well with Miles Sanders. Joe Mixon, similar just mindset here. Again, there's too many touches for someone like this to just be off the grid in DFS land. So facing the Colts front 7, that you take Darius Leonard out of the picture, certainly more beatable. A little worried about DeForest Buckner just, having a massive game, blowing things up. But again, opportunity over matchup. Anytime we got these running backs like Mixon and Sanders, so much more under-owned than the chalky guys, I don't mind pivoting when the opportunity is fairly equal. I like Tyler Boyd. He's always facing winnable matchups, operating out of the friendly confines of the slot. Talking up Joe Burrow, we got to talk up, his number one receiver, which has been Tyler Boyd this year. So even with AJ Green healthy, I think Boyd, can make the most out of his 8 to 12 targets against that overrated Colts secondary. And then finally, my pick for the week is Odell Beckham. Had this illness that kept him off the practice field for the end of the week, but, not COVID. He's good to go. He's going to be out there. He remains a high-end boom candidate. I mean, he had the massive game against the Cowboys. Last week still made some nice catches. The problem has just been volume. The Browns have won their last 4 games, and they've been up by multiple scores in the fourth quarter every single time. So truly haven't had to put their foot on the gas all season. I think they're going to have to throw the ball more this game, whether or not Baker's ready for it. And you look at the Steelers secondary, yes, great defense, but didn't stop Travis Fulgham from going off for 10 catches, 140 yards last week. Darius Slayton had over 100 yards and 2 scores in week 1. Joe Hayden doesn't travel with individual receivers. So, until Steven Nelson and Mike Hilton start playing better, I think that offense can continue to get their number 1 wide receiver open against his secondary. And yeah, it's going to be a little bit up and down with Beckham as long as he's in this run first offense. But, it's awfully scary to fade a guy like him when he's healthy in a spot that, we've seen wide receivers go off. So I think there's underrated boom potential for OBJ this week.
Yeah, and Juice Landry's ribs, I hear they're healthy. So QB1 for the Browns is ready to rock. I was going to transition to the next segment, but I just realized I was checking my lineups here, and I have a pressing question for you, Ian. Who am I playing at tight end, Mike Gesicki or Bob Tonyan? Help me.
Well, I'm going with Bobby Tonyan.
All right.
Guy just only scores touchdowns. Most important thing with the Packers is being one of Aaron Rodgers' good friends, which apparently Tonyan is.
So this is why this guy is the best. All right, we have Cardinals, Cowboys, Rams, Niners, and then the Monday night game. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Beginning of the season, you looked at Rams-Niners and you go, oh man, it's going to be a tough game for the Los Angeles Rams. Jimmy G goes out, does not look good. All of a sudden, this line moves like 6 points. The Rams are favored in San Francisco. It was 3 when I checked. It's still 3?
Yep.
It is. Actually, you know what? I see 2.5.
Wow.
And
okay,
you know what?
Well, we were sharp early in the week.
We were sharp earlier in the week. And so I'm going to kick this off because I love this. 2.5, this gives me an opportunity to do the following. Tease the New England Patriots down to -1. Tease Kyle Shanahan. He is not going to get blown out by Sean McVay in his own house. It will not happen. Tease them up to +8.5. As you can see, I don't think Jimmy G is a total train wreck. Average depth of target almost 10 yards downfield last week. They get back. They attack the middle of the field where the Rams are porous.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at, Micah Kiser, he's kind of injured, and he hasn't been good at the beginning of, to start anyway. You look at the Rams, 4-1, all 4 wins against the NFC East, which is a train wreck. And George Kittle, the last time they placed a team sort of as weak in the middle of the field, Philadelphia Eagles, he had 15, 16, 17 catches. So, I think the Niners match up really well here. And the fact that the betting market's moved 6 points in one direction, from the look ahead last week all the way until where we are now, I think is an egregious overestimation.
This game is hilarious in terms of all the other wins that these teams have amassed. So the Rams are 4-0 in the NFC East. The 49ers don't have a win outside of New Jersey against the 2 worst teams in the NFL. The thing that scares me about this game, though, I agree with George that the 49ers are not that bad, right? They're a better fundamental team than that. But all of their quarterbacks now have been horrendous in the last 2 weeks. Like, Nick Mullins was supposed to be the proof that this system was independent of quarterbacks. It didn't matter who you put out there. Kyle Shanahan could get plus play and look fantastic. And people were saying, can Jimmy G lose his job to Nick Mullins? Then Mullins goes out, has a disaster, rushes Garoppolo back into the lineup, who also has a disaster, and Beathard can't do much better coming in for relief. So you've now got 3 QBs. I don't know any of whom are going to give you quality play.
Jimmy G's ankle got twisted as he rushed back into the lineup. Okay?
Right.
So can you give him a second
I frankly
chance?
see it as like the old Niners where they had Young, Montana, and Bono all at the
course.
same time.
Yeah.
Beathard, Mullins, and Garoppolo.
You spoke to something interesting. The Niners have had the 2nd easiest schedule in the NFL. The Rams, the 4th. Now, the Rams, interestingly, the only reason they're 4th and not higher up is because they've played a decent team in the Bills. Right. They lost that game. All their wins have come against the NFC East, and the NFC East is a total disaster. So I just can't see this Rams team, especially with Jared Goff, who is basically doing what Kyle Shanahan asked his quarterbacks to do for Sean McVay, being this big of a favorite. Okay, I have many fantasy questions here for Ian. So the first one, Ian, that I want to get to, we talked about this a little bit last week. The Kupp-Woods dynamic preseason, in redraft, Woods, in our minds, was the clear-cut receiver you wanted in LA. Kupp now is getting a lot more usage. In this particular matchup, I'm assuming you're firing both up. How would you rank these guys?
Yeah, I think you can keep firing both up, but it's just, for the better part of the last 2 seasons, both these guys were kind of flirting with top 12 production on an every week basis, and we got to get used to that being close to that top 20 line, I think, moving forward. It's just more of a run-first offense than ever. I mean, last year, Woods was averaging 9.3 targets per game. This year, he's at 6.2. Kupp was at 8.4 last year, and now he's at 7.2. So the touch distribution is actually a little closer because Woods gets the rush attempts and Kupp doesn't, but, Goff he isn't throwing much, and unlike a situation, with past year Russell Wilson or this year Kirk Cousins where they don't throw enough, but at least they throw downfield. Goff isn't doing that either. So it's really like not many targets, and the targets they do get aren't of the fantasy-friendly variety. So maybe they make the most of it. I mean, this 49ers team, just all the injuries on defense, and, the Jets, Giants, and Eagles obviously couldn't take all that much advantage of it, but we did see Fitzpatrick and that Dolphins offense have all sorts of success last week. So Woods and Kupp, both great players. Maybe they can make the most out of their opportunities in this matchup, but the wide receiver one volume that we got used to seeing in past years just hasn't been there thus far.
In fact, speaking to Cooper Kupp, I kind of like his over-reception number today. The 49ers coverage unit, I don't know if you watched last week's game, they did not really exist and offered no resistance whatsoever. Speaking of a man who does not feel resistance, Raheem the Dream Mostert. If this were like 97, 98, he'd be 2K. He'd be Terrell Davis all over again. Guy is an absolute freak of nature, has more long rushing touchdowns than any other player in the NFL since the start of last season. I am the happy owner of some Raheem Mostert. So, Ian, are you bullish on the fact that he gets more of the share? He got a lot of the share last week, even though he's just coming back from injury.
Oh, yeah. I mean, his usage last week was right there with what we would normally expect. And I think when the 49ers, do bring their guys back, we can kind of feel confident that, unless they tell us otherwise, like they did with Deebo Samuel, he was going to be limited, and he was in his first game back. But, with Kittle and Mostert, they're pretty good about bringing their guys back when they are healthy and ready to go. The exception is seemingly Jimmy G. That's why he got benched. I mean, Shanahan came out and said, the way the game was going, I wasn't going to keep putting him in those positions. No, we're going to have to throw the ball a lot to come back. So it seems like a situation where they're going to run the ball as much as they possibly can in this game. When they want to do that, it's obviously Raheem Mostert as the RB1. Unfortunately, I mean, I thought last week that it was going to be Mostert and McKinnon because McKinnon was working as such the lead back. I mean, Jeff Wilson wasn't even in the picture when Mostert was out. Unfortunately, it was Mostert and then McKinnon and Wilson as the 2A, 2B. So can't use any of those other guys, but Mostert, fire him up as a top 15 back this week.
I am ready. By the way, there's a lot of props that we like here. Go to PFF.com, use the props tool, check those out all the way up to game time, and then follow PFF_Eric. He'll be tweeting out. Sometimes he'll be explicit about the props. Sometimes it'll be coded language. You'll have to figure it out. We're going to talk about the 2 Monday night games briefly. What we're going to do is we're going to go around the horn. We're like 3 minutes to game time here. So Chiefs, Bills, I'll start this one off. The Chiefs are now out to -5. I'm going to take the over 57.5. Because why would you do anything else with Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, there's evidence Andy Reid gives forth a more unique offense in games that matter more. given our data, and I think he does so here. It was a look-ahead spot for both Buffalo and Kansas City last week, and they lost. I don't see that being the case here. In the better team wins, which is Kansas City.
Yeah, what was interesting in the Mahomes game is that his grade pre and post Sammy Watkins completely different. Watkins goes down, nobody else really understands how to play the different role in the offense, and Mahomes just bails on everything and gets himself into trouble. 82-47.
Whoa.
If they've got practice time to get everyone on the same page, Mahomes is back to Mahomes.
By the way, did you say win? Did you not go against the spread or total? What is this, Fox? Unbelievable.
5's a dead number, George. We all know this.
I'm dead now. Ian.
I got the over here. I think Allen and Mahomes, two of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league right now, which is awesome to say about our guy Josh Allen. And, also would just note that happy Mecole Hardman season. One of the true only handcuff wide receivers in fantasy where if any of Watkins, Tyreek, Demarcus Robinson go down, we can truly slot in Mecole as, an upside wide receiver 3 with Watkins out. If you need a flex, get Mecole in the lineup.
All right, Cowboys-Cardinals. Cowboys are a 1-point underdog. This is another teaser leg that I love. So if you didn't like the couple that we mentioned, you put this with the Patriots or another one that you really like. Andy Dalton, I will just say this right here. He's not Dak Prescott. No stretch. But he has the receivers to be very good. He's a very accurate quarterback. I like the Cowboys here on the money line. I like them as a teaser leg.
Yeah, the last time Andy Dalton was really good was in 2015. He had almost a 10 A-dot. Last season, Cowboys were the most efficient offense in the league, 10 A-dot, 3 good wide receivers. I think Dalton's going to be fine. The bet I really like right now, go get yourself some Dallas minus 125 to win the NFC East.
Yeah, let me give you some Dalton numbers to back up exactly what you're saying. In that game, when he came in relief for Dak Prescott, passing grade of 85.
That's right.
The last time he had a receiving group, even in the ballpark of as good as this Dallas group, PFF passing grade of 82.
Yeah.
So Andy Dalton, the red rifle, will be fine. It's whether the defense can be.
It's also just a foregone conclusion that people will cite his record versus Dak's next offseason. It's just going to happen. Ian, your thoughts on this game?
Cowboys game total, that doesn't start with a 6. I'm betting the over. So that's all I got.
That has been the PFF pregame show. This was a lot of fun. We missed you, Mike. We hope you stay healthy, buddy. Don't do anything that we wouldn't do. You can check out all of our stuff on PFF.com. All these guys write great stuff. And I'll continue to give you props that feed your family. Thanks for hanging out with us. Have some fun today. See you guys.